What's up, everybody? Cinephile Mike here, and today I am joined by filmmaker Chase Joynt, director of the new documentary State of Firsts. This film documents Sarah McBride's historic campaign to become the first transgender member of Congress and the challenges she faced as she stepped onto the national stage. Blending intimate access, archival footage, and real time political history, the documentary examines what it means to carry both public expectations and personal responsibility during a pivotal moment in American politics. Chase, thank you so much for taking the time to chat with me today.
Very happy to be here.
So, State of First arrives at a moment when conversations surrounding identity, representation, and public service remain very much in the spotlight. So, what has it been like sharing this film with audiences and hearing their reactions?
We couldn't have anticipated the volatility that would have circulated around Congresswoman McBride's campaign. And yet, we also understood that we were in a moment where there was a hyper focus on trans rights and on trans people. And so, in some ways, I felt like it was a gift to be able to have a camera with such close access at the time to tell a different kind of story about this political moment. And of course, it's something that continues to transform and change in the long wake of her election.
And when she comes into this story with all these multiple expectations, and you have this camera on her as a candidate, as a public figure, as someone that many people, view symbolically, what were you hoping to learn about her that was different than what audiences might already have known from the headlines and the news coverage?
Yeah, I think as a public, we have become accustomed to certain kinds of stories about trans people. And something that I really appreciated is that Sarah is surrounded by a very supportive family who have encouraged her personal and professional trajectories. And to be able to represent that alongside the unfolding political story felt like a very important contribution to the conversation.
And it really offers that intimate access to Sarah that we don't always have with political figures through those more private moments, driving in the car or, sitting in the office. I don't know your relationship with her, but how did you go about building that level of trust necessary to capture those moments while documenting such a high profile campaign?
Yeah, I didn't know her prior, but our producer, Jenna Kelly, went to American University with Sarah. And so if she was a part of this conversation, she would say that she's been tracking this documentary for years and years and years, trying to wait for the perfect time to ask for this kind of approach. And so my access was brokered by intimacy and trust through others. And then it was really through shooting where I recognized the car as a very important space that was both public and a place where she spends a lot of time moving around the state, talking to constituents, but also is a moment of privacy where she is covered and shielded from other forms of expectations or capture. And so it's in those moments of driving in between where I recognized she was more willing to speak about her personal history, her hesitations, her vulnerabilities. And so really trying to treat that as an integral space of storytelling possibility.
And you brought up an interesting point about, brokering that trust through other people. And so, in addition to the content you captured, we also have a lot of archival footage, right, from several chapters of Sarah's public life that help provide the context to the audience who may be encountering this story for the first time. So, with all of that footage, how did you determine what archival moments were the most essential to include to maintain the focus?
Yeah, it's a great question, and it's actually attached to the prior answer that I gave around audience expectations about trans life. So, one version of this story could bring you back into the personal archive of Sarah's childhood becoming. But as a trans maker, I recognized the opportunity to say no to that archival trajectory and instead to say yes to the versions of representation that were about her political becoming. And because what we were shooting was unfolding in real time alongside the volatility of the media of the far right, we were able to dance archivally between these various forms of media making. And knowing that our shoot trajectory was so incredibly tight and contained meant that we were pulling in real time from the media that was unfolding.
And when you first began filming, what did you think the end point of the documentary would be? And I'm curious and did the events after the election obviously change how long you were going to follow the story?
It's always a great question of political verite documentaries is what happens when we're hanging our narrative expectations on an election or on an outcome. And we had a pretty good sense that she was going to win. She is a very popular and beloved politician in the local in Delaware. We could not have anticipated the volatility of her arrival to Congress and our embeddedness within that. But as soon as that started happening, particularly in and around the bathroom bans, we recognized that the job of the film was to get it into circulation as soon as possible. So we finished shooting at inauguration with the explicit intention of trying to turn the film around as quickly as we could to stay in the conversation.
And now across your documentaries, and I see the posters behind you of your previous films. You've explored questions of identity, visibility, and belonging in different ways. So, as you were making State of Firsts, were there themes that emerged that surprised you or expanded your thinking compared to the previous work you had done?
This is my first verite film. A lot of my other works jump across genre very strategically, but I knew in this moment, this opportunity, that it was never a more important time to highlight the encroaching threats against trans life and the opportunity to stitch a camera to this political present, to this administration was in some ways unmatched. And so I jumped in recognizing that we did not know where we were heading, but that we had a chance to create a document that could mark a moment in time and also be something upon which we can continue to refer as hopefully this political moment continues to change.
And so, building on that, and I love to ask this question of filmmakers when I have a chance to meet with them. As you continue working and considering what your next project might be, what would you say, share the advice, is one best practice that you have learned that you either learned on State of First or one of the previous projects that you look forward to taking with you next time, and maybe one learning curve you've tried not to repeat in your work?
Okay, great. So, I mean, I believe that, your camera is your perspective. Your camera is the frame through which you are asking audiences to approach your subject matter. So, one of the commitments in State of Firsts was to remain within a trans POV. So, to not be looking at, but to be looking with subjects. And that is a choice of technology, that is a choice of team, that is a choice of perspective. And I really carry that with me from project to project. And it never felt more clear and more important than when we were in production in State of Firsts. And, my advice around things, what I take with me always is make sure that you have lots of water and snacks. Because in a world of verite filmmaking, you never know when you're going to put that camera down and you never know when you're going to get a break. My endorsement for protein bars, yeah.
And when audiences leave State of Firsts, what is something that you hope stays with them emotionally or intellectually afterward?
Yeah, I hope that the film is not about agreeing or disagreeing with Sarah McBride's politics, but rather an opportunity to situate her in a broader political context where you, as an audience member, can feel the arguments for and against various issues, and where you can find and locate yourself as a agentic political subject within, where we all have an opportunity to be contributing and participating to the future that we want. And the film is an access point to one of the ways in which people are trying to do so.
Excellent. Well, very well said. Well, Chase, thank you again so much for taking the time to speak with me today. Congratulations on State of Firsts. For everyone watching, we'll include information about the film and where you can follow it. The film is releasing on June 12th. So we'll be able to get those local listings out to you. As always, if you enjoyed this conversation, please make sure to comment, subscribe to the channel for more filmmaker interviews like this, festival coverage, spoiler-free reviews. You'll be able to find my State of First spoiler-free review on my website, cinephilemike.com. Chase, have a wonderful day. And everyone, until next time, remember, take a break and watch something new. Have a good one.
Thanks, Mike.